Veronica stepped into the elevator, her shoulders square, her breath steady. As the doors slid shut behind her, a soft chime echoed, final, resolute. She was alone again, but not in isolation. She stood encased in the quiet certainty that something permanent had shifted. Below her, floors of policy teams, legal departments, and PR analysts stirred into motion like gears catching in perfect sync. Every report she'd initiated midair was now a mandate. Every clip of that flight would ripple outward, not as a scandal, but as a benchmark. As the elevator descended, she allowed herself a small glance at her reflection in the polished interior panel. No rage, no smugness, just calm. The face of someone who had been tested quietly and responded with fire wrapped in silk. Someone who, when dismissed, didn't yell, just reorganized the world beneath her feet. She adjusted her scarf, then glanced at her watch. It was 7:49 a.m. Outside the lobby doors, her car waited, black, polished, anonymous. The driver stepped out and opened the door without a word. The boardroom behind her was already abuzz with follow-up meetings. Emails and media alerts pinged to thousands. Her story, though she'd never intended to make it one, was now a symbol. A single moment of poise under pressure that drew a hard line in the sand for any company daring to speak the language of equity without living it. She slid into the back seat, and as the doors closed, she took one last look at the Omnis Tower. It stood there, steel, glass, and legacy. Hers. Then the phone in her hand buzzed with a flood of texts. One caught her eye. It was from Aaliyah. Town hall transcript already going viral. Thousands of employees sending thank you emails. Oh, and someone embroidered a napkin with 1A and framed it in reception. Veronica smiled, not broadly, not smugly, just enough to let the satisfaction settle into her bones. She typed back simply. Good. Let it stand. Let it remind them all. Traffic rolled by outside, Chicago moving like it always had. But inside that car, Veronica sat with the calm of someone who knew her silence had just spoken louder than any campaign, any press release, or marketing slogan ever could. Because in truth, this wasn't about a sandwich. It wasn't about a cold stare or a missed greeting. It was about everything those things whispered when no one thought she was listening. And she had listened intently. Somewhere in the clouds, Flight 822's cabin camera footage continued to loop. Commentators and thought leaders were already dissecting it on morning panels. The meaning of presence, the danger of microaggressions, the shift toward authentic accountability. But Veronica wasn't tuning in. Her work wasn't about noise. It was about design, quietly building systems so sound they corrected themselves midair. As the car turned toward the expressway, she finally leaned back, letting the morning light warm her face. Today would be long, media, investors, unions, but her message was already delivered. Unmistakable, unflinching. She had sat in 1A, not to be seen, but to see. And in doing so, she made sure the world would never look away again. So now, I'll ask you, what do you think? Was justice served the right way? Should power always be this quiet? Or should we demand it roar louder? Share your thoughts. Was Veronica right to act how she did, or was there a better way? Drop your take below. Let's talk about it. As the car merged onto the highway, the skyline of Chicago stretched in the distance like a calm horizon after a storm. Veronica let her gaze settle there, not in contemplation, but in preparation. She knew what came next. Change wasn't a single flight, a single statement, or even a single firing. It was the pattern that emerged when you repeated the right choice over and over until it formed the new standard. And now that pattern had begun. The CEO group chat buzzed on her private line, some sending solidarity, others cautious congratulations. One from a peer at a rival airline simply read, "You just set the bar," and raised it. Her phone pinged again. This time, it was from a junior employee, someone she vaguely remembered from an onboarding last quarter. "Ms. Miles, I've never spoken to you directly before, but I wanted to say thank you. What you did, it meant something. To all of us who've ever felt overlooked." Veronica paused, rereading it twice. Then she typed back. "It wasn't about one moment. It was about every moment like it. Make sure you speak up too, when your moment comes." She looked out the window again. The tower behind her was growing smaller, but the impact of last night still loomed large. In HR departments across the industry, conversations had shifted. Legal teams were drafting new protocols. Airline unions, many of which had long demanded equity audits, were quietly applauding her. Not just for acting, but for doing it decisively with no fanfare. No press junket. Just a woman in seat 1A, holding the line. Veronica's driver glanced in the rearview mirror. Everything all right, ma'am? She met his eyes. Everything's just getting started. At that moment, Aaliyah's voice popped through the car's Bluetooth speaker. Press conference request just came in. CNN, MSNBC, even a couple international outlets. Want me to start setting that up? Veronica shook her head slightly and said, no press. Not yet. Let the story breathe on its own. Copy that, Aaliyah replied. There was something more powerful about restraint. About letting people talk, debate, argue, interpret, before you stepped in and defined it for them. The strength of silence, she learned, wasn't in avoidance, it was in letting people lean in. Think harder. Dig deeper. And right now, the world was leaning in on Omnis Air. Behind the scenes, other airlines scrambled to review their onboard service metrics. Some rushed diversity and sensitivity training memos to staff inboxes before noon. A few CEOs whispered across encrypted calls about what Veronica had done, wondering if they could have handled it with such grace or at all. Meanwhile, inside Omnis's internal Slack channels, stories flooded in. Employees from maintenance, customer service, international lounges, even finance, sharing quiet injustices they'd held back on for years. And for the first time, someone at the top wasn't just listening. She was responding. A single sandwich. A single seat. A single look that dismissed. But the ripples? Endless. Veronica's car slowed in front of Omnis HQ once more. This time not to return to the chaos, but to film a short internal video requested by HR. She didn't prepare a script. She didn't need to. When the camera rolled in the studio near the executive wing, she looked straight ahead and said, to every employee watching this, what happened on Flight 822 was a failure. And then, it was a correction. But our job now is to ensure it becomes a transformation. We're not just fixing one moment. We're rebuilding the expectation for every one of them. For passengers. For crew. For each other. She paused, then added, you don't have to be CEO to make things right. You just have to start where you are, and never look away when dignity is on the line. She looked into the lens one last time, firm but kind. You see someone being treated like they don't belong? Remember this. The person in 1A might just be the one writing your future. The light blinked off. One take. That was enough. Outside the studio, a junior staffer stood frozen near the door, visibly shaken. She whispered, ma'am, my mother used to clean planes. If she saw this, she'd say you gave her a voice today. Veronica smiled, stepped forward, and gently touched the woman's shoulder. Then let's make sure you never lose it. The two of them stood in that quiet hallway, one generation to the next, the future still unwritten but already moving. And now, what would you have done if you were in seat 1A? Would you have stayed silent, raised your voice, or walked away? Was justice served? Or does true justice still require more than just policy and protocol? Drop your thoughts below. Let's talk about how we treat each other when no one's watching, and especially when everyone is.